sailor. But some of the workhorses of the past can still be seen if you look hard enough. There are only a handful of Norfolk wherries still afloat on these waters. One of them is Albion, which has been restored by members of the Norfolk Wherry Trust.
The first wherries were actually rowing wherries, same as you get down on the Thames. They used to have the single vessel just taking somebody across the river, and they were on the Broads. The difference was the keels had square sails and were only good on a soldier's wind from behind. The wherries took the fore and aft rig, and they found that they were a lot more handy, and eventually the wherries grew larger and took over the general cargo carrying of the Broads.
Mike Sparks is the archivist of the Trust, but working on the wherries is also in his blood.
My great-grandfather used to be a skipper down in Norwich. He used to do general loitering from Yarmouth to Norwich, often going off early in the morning on the tide, getting as far as Coldham Hall, where he would stop off and have his pint of beer. My uncle used to often sail with him, and my great-grandmother was another one who used to often sail with my great-grandfather. I joined the Wherry Trust in 1985, done 5 years as a mate, and then progressed on to being the skipper in 1991.
For the villagers who lived on the Broads, wherries were a vital lifeline.
The roads were terrible. A lot of people say that's the same today, but yes, in those days they were very bad tracks, and that, because the easiest way to move heavy cargoes, especially with the fact of muddy things and the wagons getting stuck in the mud, especially in the winter, the easiest way is on the water, and that's what they used to do. They used to bring the cargoes up. They used to carry bricks and tiles from the brick fields. They used to carry clay and chalk on what they call marl, grain. When they went down to Yarmouth, they would bring up paraffin, timber, and later on that all changed over to sugar beet. Sugar beet was one of the main cargoes. But they were very important to the villages because they would bring up the coal to the coal houses. And obviously people would come down and get the coal they required. So they were very important to their villages, especially during the winter, I would imagine.
Mike and the rest of the volunteers at the Wherry Trust take pleasure in preserving the heritage of these magnificent boats. But they know all too well that they can pick and choose the days they take to the water, unlike their predecessors.
I do realise now how hard they worked. That was a very, very hard life. Going out earlier, all hours, because you had to go out when the tide, you didn't work on a clock, you work on the tides. And if the tides were the fact that you needed to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, that was the time you got up. The amazing thing was that they did live a long life, so it obviously didn't do them any harm. But it was a hard life. I mean, we're only fair weather sailors today. I mean, they sailed through terrible weather. There's even cases of where he's actually iced up, and the skipper would actually stay aboard because he's frightened of losing his cargo or something. So. There was even a case of a wherry actually on Braden where the chap's wife used to skate up to bring him food.
Wherries continued to play an important role in the life of the Broads until the 40s, when they were finally put out of business by new forms of transport.
When the railways were built, the railways took over, and then the roads were improved, and eventually the lorries took over. But the wherry is really the lorry of the Broads.
Coming up next, how old techniques are bringing new life to the Broads. For more than a century, wherries like the Albion were a regular sight on the Broads. They linked the many remote communities that existed around the rivers and waterways. The Albion started her life on the southern Broads, but other vessels plied their trade in the northern waters, all the way to Great Yarmouth. Before the final stretch across